Hi everyone, how are you? Welcome to my first video. My name is Mur. Here I'm gonna post the most notorious solved and unsolved Brazilian cases. So if you like this kind of thing, please consider subscribing. Today we're gonna talk about Brazil's biggest serial killer, a man who allegedly claimed more than 100 lives. But was he a punisher or just a revengeful dude? Well, let's find out. This is Brazilian True Crime. Our story begins in October the 29th, 1954, in a city called Santa Rita do Sapucaí, in the state of Minas Gerais, Brazil. On this day, Pedro Rodrigues Filho was born. Since his name is the same as his father's, we're gonna call him Pedrinho, which is roughly translated as Little Pedro. He had a very rough start from the get-go. His father was very abusive to him, his mother, and his 12 siblings, but mostly against his mother, beating her up even during her pregnancies. And for that reason, Pedrinho was born with a fractured skull, which could contribute to what happened later in his life. When Pedrinho was 9-10 years old, the whole family moved from Santa Rita do Sapucaí to Alfenas, in this city, at the age of 13. In the 60s, Pedrinho showed his first murderous desires. He tried to kill his own cousin in a corn farm they both worked. He pushed his cousin into a corn chisel. His cousin was severely injured, but he managed to survive, fortunately. But even though it was a very gruesome scene, Pedrinho was let out free from his first crime. The next year, in 1968, at the age of 14 only, Pedrinho would finally make his murderous desires come true. Well, at this point, his father worked as a security guard in the vice mayor's office in the city of Alfenas, Minas Gerais. And one day, his father, Pedro Sr., came home after the work and said he was fired under the accusations of stealing from the vice mayor's office. Well, Pedrinho didn't buy it. He thought it was all BS from the mayor, so he took his revenge. He went to the vice mayor, killed him with a knife, and also killed vice mayor's brother and brother-in-law. After that, Pedrinho started his own investigations against the true robber of the vice mayor's office, and he found out who it was. It was his father's co-worker. So, to defend his father's honor, he went there and killed this guy too. Another one for the count. At this point, Pedrinho developed his MO, which was killing people he considered bad people to society. So he used to work as some sort of a punisher or something like that. But he also somehow managed to escape prison, running away to another state, the state of São Paulo. And that's where he went after a brief passage to another city. Well, once in São Paulo, he started committing small thefts and petty crimes. But it's not a huge secret that Brazil has a huge drug trafficking problem. And São Paulo isn't any different. Even worse in the 70s when the crimes take place. Well, at the time there was a drug boss called Jorge Galvão. Pedrinho didn't quite like being under people in the crime scene. So, considering Jorge Galvão as a bad person to society, Pedrinho, as a punisher, as himself called or whatever, went there, killed Jorge Galvão and all his partners. So he raised his body count to 7 or 10, or I don't know, I lost count at this point. But you might be wondering, he killed bad people, so he kind of cleaned the city, right? Wrong. He instead took the whole area Jorge Galvão was the leader and started trafficking drugs too. And more than that, he married Jorge Galvão's wife, becoming a even bigger drug boss in the scene. In the year of 1973, when Pedrinho was 18 years old, the legal age for jail in Brazil, he was finally arrested for his murders and drug trafficking and thefts and all the other crimes we don't even know about. He was finally arrested and sentenced to 128 years in prison. So, okay, he was arrested and he would spend a lot of time in jail, so that's the end of the story, right? Well, wrong again. His MO was to kill bad people, or at least people who he thought was bad people. And where better to find bad people than jail itself? So putting him in jail made things worse. From 1973 onwards, Pedrinho, it's estimated actually that he killed more 48 people. Yeah, 48. He would kill everyone who came to the same prison as he was serving his sentence. Every murder, rapist, and even snitches, actually. Everyone who he didn't like or would be a huge pain in the ass for him and his power behind bars. He would kill anyone.
Você vê esses caras estrupando aí, matando pai de família por causa de tênis velha, por isso traz tudo vivo pra cadeia, tem que matar esses caras aí. Eu se eu sou polícia no lugar deles, vivo não vem. De jeito maneira, nem estrupador e esse tipo de gente assim não vem vivo não. Enchendo cadeia pra quê? Comer de graça na cadeia, só ficar engordando?
And you might say, where were the cops and the guards during that? To be fair, they didn't really care. Pedrinho was, in their opinion, cleaning the jail and killing people who they couldn't kill in the streets. One of those killings, those bad people who died, were more important to Pedrinho's history. That guy was his own father.
Aí falou, sua mãe foi assassinada. Tá, brincadeira, o senhor tá ficando sonhando, né? E eu era inexperiente, jurei vingança no caixão, em voz alta ainda.
Aí, o que você falou?
Eu falei que, né, a pessoa que fez aquilo ali ia pagar do mesmo estilo.
One day, Pedrinho was in jail, serving his sentence, killing everyone who crossed his path, and the guard called him and said, Pedrinho, I have bad news. He was like, oh, my life is bad news at this point, and why not another one? So the guard said, well, your mother was murdered. She was found dead with 21 stab wounds, and the killer was your father. Well, there was a lot of bad news in Pedrinho's life, but that really pissed him off. His father, the very same he defended against the vice mayor years before, had finally, after decades of abuse and violence, succeeded in killing his mom, Pedrinho's mom. Pedrinho was really mad at the bone. So after the trial, as a huge coincidence, Pedrinho's father was sentenced to serve in the same jail Pedrinho was serving his time. Well, things couldn't end well from that. So in just another very ordinary day, the guards were distracted with someone that didn't quite make history, and they left Pedrinho unguarded. So Pedrinho decided to go to his father's cell, and for some reason that I can't tell right now, that really slips from my fingers, his and his father's cell were open. So Pedrinho went there, and since his mother was killed with 21 stab wounds, Pedrinho went to his father and gave him 22 stab wounds to revenge his mother's death. And after that, Pedrinho cut his father's chest, took a piece of his heart, put it in his mouth, chew it, and spit it on the floor.
Ele deu 21 facadas na minha mãe e eu dei 22. Por causa do coração, né? Que eu tinha jurado vingança, né? Mas não que eu comi. Tô vendo na internet tá falando que eu comi coração.
Que
eu
você
simplesmente cortei. Porque era vingança, né? Cortei, joguei fora.
Você tirou o coração do teu pai?
Um pedaço.
Um pedaço e jogou fora?
Mastiguei e cuspi fora.
Ah, mas não engoliu?
Não, cuspi não dá nada.
Mas mastigou?
Mastiguei porque, né? Porque foi vingança, tinha que fazer aquilo, era mãe, né?
And just like that, life went on. I said Pedrinho killed more than 48 people after his imprisonment, and that is true, that is confirmed. But there is maybe a lot more people who were killed in this process. But what were the guards and the punishment, or, well, whatever. Well, after all this very calm prison time, he went to trial again and was resentenced. His former sentence of 128 years was raised to 400 years. Well, with a sentence of 528 years, it's pretty much life in prison, right? Well, try again. In Brazil, there is no life imprisonment. And even worse, there is a maximum jail time. Nowadays, since 2019, the maximum jail time is 40 years in prison. But at a time, the maximum was 30. And Pedrinho, who isn't a fool, used that to his favor.
Pedro Rodrigues Filho, o Pedrinho Matador, carrega mais de 70 homicídios nas costas. Está condenado a mais de 500 anos, mas vai voltar às ruas quando cumprir 30 anos de cadeia, o tempo máximo previsto pelo Código Penal. Como já cumpriu 27 anos de cadeia, Pedrinho deve voltar às ruas em 99.
A liberdade para mim não existe por enquanto até chegar a lei dos 30. Chega a lei dos 30, eu tenho que ir embora de qualquer jeito.
Well, after all the killings, all the murders and violence and all the shit he did, he found the church and Jesus Christ. And he said he was rehabilitated. So he tried a retrial to be released. Not on parole, just released as a free man. At first, the judge didn't accept it. So he stayed in jail. But after trying again, he was released as a free man in 2007, after 34 years behind bars. After that, he kept a pretty low life, working as a farm keeper in a couple of cities in São Paulo. But he would be arrested again in 2011 for crimes committed during his first jail time. Crimes of mutiny and private incarceration, for which he wasn't judged in the first trial, so he could be resentenced. And he served another 8 years, adding to a total of 42 years behind bars. But he was re-released in 2018 at the age of 64. Since then, he's living his life with his wife and trying to work as anything that appears, including being a YouTuber who talks about true crime. Well, that's his specialty, right? He's now considered rehabilitated, and to be fair, he didn't kill anyone else that we know of. That pretty much wraps up the case, and Pedrinho is now 68 years old, out and about, and I certainly hope he's rehabilitated. He's really rehabilitated.
Matar e matar lá fora. Eu sou obrigado. Se eu matava 10 antigamente, agora na rua já vou matar 20, 30, né? Sem problema nenhum.
Even though I don't know if I believe it. So what you guys think? Was he a Punisher and an Avenger, or just revengeful, cruel dude who killed for power? Please let me know what you think about this case and Pedrinho himself in the comment section down below. And if you like the content and want to know more about Brazilian true crimes, serial killers, murders from this beautiful country I live in, please consider subscribing and liking the video, and see you all next week. Goodbye.